Good morning, everyone. I think most people are seated. Very warm welcome to this second day of the Economy for Common Good conference. I'm very happy, very delighted to see you. I hope you all had a good stay in your hotels, a good night. Today is a day focused on the practical part of the economy for the common good. Yesterday we focused more on the scientific part, the research part. And I would like to reflect shortly on one of the things that Christian Felber said yesterday. In fact, I wanted to stand on my hands like he did yesterday, but I tried the entire night and I'm just suffering now everywhere from my neck and back. So I won't do that here on stage. I'm insufficiently confident that I can do so and perform it well. But focusing on the language, I feel more comfortable in reflecting on yesterday. And one of the things that I liked was that he said that he used to think that the economy for common good is a contradictio in terminis, as the economy cannot benefit everyone, let alone all of life on Earth. But then, in fact, he said, I learned that over time the economy for common good instead is a tautology. And he also explained that various constitutions and laws even formally institutionalized that economy should benefit the common interest. And I think this makes sense to all of us here. I also find it very inspiring because in the outside world it may not always feel like this makes sense. So this is also a very encouraging environment to me to feel like, oh, we're not crazy, we're not alone, things can be done differently. But if the economy for common doesn't always feel like it's for the common good, why do we talk about, why does the economy have so many negative externalities? It's something that Kate Raworth also addressed yesterday evening. And she said also, why do we talk about externalities in the first place? It also is a symptom of what the focus is on dominant economic thinking. Well, to me, this conference is also a huge delight. It is a place of hope. And for me, those 3 days feel like being in a sort of parallel universe in which we share knowledge, ideas, and practical examples of how an economy for good can be, or in fact is, a tautology rather than a contradictio in terminis. So what I would like to do is I wish you today a very inspiring but also encouraging and activating day, and that helps us to set new standards for what is normal. And that now brings me to the first speaker of the day. I have the honor to introduce to you Cees Buisman. Cees Buisman is a professor of biorecovery at Wageningen University, and in addition he is the executive board member at WETSUS, the hosting organization of this conference. He also acted as the chair of the steering committee of this conference. He has a wide experience in working on environmental biotechnology, and his current research is on water innovation. He has numerous publications, including his book, Humanity is Not a Plague. And I think this title in itself is already telling a lot. Please give a warm applause to Cees Buisman.
Thank you, Matthias, for a very nice introduction. I'm, of course, very honored to be a keynote speaker at this conference, being not an economist. So I hope I can still convey some messages to you. So when I was 16, I chose to become an engineer in environmental technology, with the conception that I would save the world with new technologies and that we would create a world of sustainable abundance. Of course, now I'm a little bit older and sadder, and I came to the conclusion that, of course, that is nonsense, because there must be a limit somewhere. We cannot all live in a house like Bill Gates, so we have to think a little bit different. So I changed my vision on that, and that's what the title of my keynote is: Search for Coherent Innovations. Because I'm an innovator, I'm not an economist, but I believe that there are good innovations and bad innovations. And the good innovations I call coherent innovations, and I would say in the name of this conference we could call them innovations for the common good. And of course you have non-coherent innovations. And I will try in my lecture to explain that further. Of course, in my opinion, I'm now 60 plus, I don't think we can create a sustainable world if we don't change ourselves. So I also want to say something about that. So I started, when I was still in my green innovation period, I also started WETSIS. WETSIS is a very special research institute with a unique way of cooperating companies and universities so that we can accelerate innovation significantly. So about 2018, we changed our mission that we only want to cooperate on innovations that lead to a fair and sustainable world. And you must not underestimate how much our world now is formed by innovations. It goes faster and faster. So I always give the advice to young people, only work on innovations that lead to a world where you want to live in. So we are working on water technology. And Christian already said yesterday that he doesn't want to talk about CO2 anymore, so he chose biodiversity. But me, as an engineer, I prefer water, because water you can calculate much better than biodiversity. So at this moment, it is completely clear that we are using too much water, and that we are destroying the water sources. And at this moment already 50% of all inhabitants of the world suffer water scarcity. So it is already now. And one of the wettest countries in the world, the Netherlands, also sometimes already suffers water scarcity, which is almost unbelievable. And water is incredibly complex. And of course, it looks very simple. So I will try to give you a little bit a lesson in water, the complexity of water scarcity. So in the first place, look at the lower ones. If you look at the water that you can see, that you can pump, we call blue water. And blue water you can see in the rivers and in the lakes. Yeah, you can see it, you cannot see it, but you can pump it up from the groundwater, and then you can see it, and you can see it as snow in the mountains. And you understand that normally in the winter there is more rain, in the summer when you need it there is less rain. And these systems help us, because normally the snow is in the mountains at 2,000 or 3,000 meter high. It accumulates in the winter, and when we need it, it melts and it comes down, because it is at a height. It comes down automatically to the deltas where we can use it for agriculture. The groundwater is the same. In the winter, some lands are flooded and the water sips into the ground, and then in summer we can pump it up and use it for our crops. All these systems are under pressure. We are pumping up way too much groundwater. We have not enough space anymore, not enough wetlands anymore that the water can go into the ground. And of course, the mountains snow is reducing in mass every year. Then we have the green water system. The green water system is everything to do with rain. And if you think about it, the source of our beautiful renewable water in the world, the only sustainable source is rain. If it's not raining anymore, that's the end of civilization. And everything that has to do with rain we call green water. And of course the most logical one is the water in the air, the atmospheric water. If there is not enough water in the air, then it will not rain. So a little bit of water is not enough. You need a lot of water to make the water condensate and rain. And one of the things you need for that is water in the soil. So not groundwater, but soil water. So that is the water that you cannot see. If you squeeze the soil, it will not come out. That is the soil water. The green water system is completely dependent on forests, wetlands, and good agricultural soils. What we have done, of course, is the opposite. We have cut down the forests, we are drying out the wetlands, and we deteriorate the agricultural soil. So even in the Netherlands, one of the wettest countries in the world, we have now the strange situation that it in summer rains less and less, and in the winter it rains more and more. It's already raining here for 6 months now. We have never had so much rain in the winter as last year. But in Spain and Mediterranean countries, this is a much worse cycle. It's already much more severe. So, how does shortage of blue water look like? Oh, just the planetary boundaries. I forgot them, of course. So it was until recently that the Stockholm Resilience Institute added this as a planetary, it was added as a planetary boundary from the beginning, but that we are overachieving that first for green water and now also for blue water. You see it in the lower bottom. So both these water problems are now recognized as that we have already exceeded the planetary boundary, which is a little bit strange if 50% of the people in the world already have water scarcity, that it only now becomes visible here. But the Stockholm Resilience Institute explained to me that that was because it only comes in this graph when it is dangerous for the stability of the whole world. So now finally that is proven and recognized. And then the other thing we have to know about water is that most of the water goes to agriculture. And you must realize that 1 ton of grain needs to evaporate 1,000 tons of water. And only so if there is a boat of grain leaving the Ukraine with 20,000 tons of grain, it's 20 million cubic meters of water. And so that is the calculation you have to do in your head. So 70% of all the water in the world goes to agriculture. And if you know that a ton of grain is in the order of magnitude of 100 euros per ton, maybe 200 euros per ton, then you can very simply calculate that water for grain can cost no more than 1 to 2 cents per ton, and it's impossible to make this water. It is impossible to make water from seawater, even if the energy is for free, like Elon Musk thinks, then it's impossible, because the technology you need, you cannot do it, and for 1,000 tons of water, you make 40 tons of salt. To produce 1 ton of grain, you can very quickly see that would be completely unsustainable and impossible. So we need to have rain for grain. You cannot do it with desalination. This is the amount of water that we have, and we have to do with it. You cannot innovate more water. So that's very important to think, because you cannot innovate yourself out of this problem, and it's very accurately calculated, this situation. So the Russians thought they could use the Aral Lake for cotton production. So the picture you see here is the bottom of the lake. This lake is about the size of the Netherlands, I think, and it's now a desert. You can see this used to be lake, and how quickly you can do it. So within 20 years this was completely gone. Also the groundwater, which is not visible, we have 3 very large groundwater aquifers. One is in the United States, one is in India, one is in China, and they are all in the last 100 years already been depleted for 50%. So in 100 years, these aquifers have built up in 100,000 to 1 million years. So you can consider these as fossil water. And this is not renewable water, but fossil water. You can only use it once. So it goes very fast, and farmers get a little bit alarmed now because of all the water going to schaliegas. I said it in English. Shale gas. Yeah. So, how much water does an EU person use in a day? Well, if you calculate the grain and the meat and the milk, then you come to 4,000 liters per day. And for a lot of people, this is an enormous amount, and of course this is. But if you would multiply this with 8 billion people, or maybe 10 billion in the future, then you could easily see that there is not enough water in the world. And Arjen Hoekstra and Twente calculated that 2,300 liters would be a fair number for every citizen in the world. So if you look at this graph, you can easily calculate what you have to do to put your footprint in the right order. In the contrary of CO2, and there is no way around this. We cannot make water with CO2. We have the illusion that we can do something about it with nuclear power and other crazy things. But with water, that's not possible. So if you look at the meat part, you can easily see if you don't use milk and meat that you are already more or less in the right ballpark. And if you look at the plant stuff, but you could also, of course, look at coffee and tea and cacao. I already said the level is about 2,300. The problem, of course, it's not the same all over the world. The United States, of course, is way ahead of us in destroying the world. China and India are more or less on the right level. Africa, they are below. As usual, this is the same, I guess, with CO2. So, especially for the economists, I make a graph. And which is it's very logic for everyone, especially environmentalists, that exponential growth always has to lead to discontinuity. And there is somewhere a boundary. Now, we have defined the planetary boundary, so this graph should be a little bit different because it should already be above the dotted line. But in the past, this has been predicted many times. Malthus already predicted that we would have an enormous famine in the 18th century because the population grew much faster than the food production. It didn't happen. And the Club of Rome predicted that in the year 2000 we would have nothing anymore, no copper, no oil, and it didn't happen. So what always happens is that there is an innovation. And thanks to this innovation, all of a sudden we could make much more food. And thanks to this innovation, we could find much more oil. But although these innovations are delaying the process, we are still going in the direction of this discontinuity. And we're already there, that's clear, because we're already above the planetary boundaries. You cannot say we are still below the dotted line. And this was also the eye-opener for me. It was very disappointing that for an engineer in a world environmental technology, we have developed such incredible, beautiful technologies. And every time we reduce the environmental deterioration with 90%, we simply started to use 10 times more, and then we were back to the old level. So you could easily say it is impossible to stay below the planetary boundaries if we always want to grow, if we always want more. So I have defined my own economy of enough. And so not so much, maybe you can call it degrowth, but the economy of enough. So when do we have enough? Only when we have enough, environmental technology can help us. We must, of course, be very clear that with 10 billion people, you cannot live in this earth without technology. That's not possible. You cannot live in this world without international cooperation. That is impossible. Those days are gone. So, looking at things, how things are going now. I make some examples. I want to illustrate this coherent and non-coherent. So we have this incredible health care system that first you have to become ill, then we try to make you better, and that doesn't work. Then you are chronically ill, and then you have to eat medicines for the rest of your life. And it is shockingly more than 50% of the people in the Western world are chronically ill. More than 50% is the rich part of the world. So in the Netherlands we eat 2 billion pills per year, 75 million kilos. And this all goes into the toilet and then comes to the water sector. And we have to deal with that. And of course, a much more coherent solution was to live healthier and not to become ill. I will come back to that later. The other thing is, for instance, pesticides. So we know pesticides have the risk of creating Parkinson. And you need a different way of testing these pesticides to see if they create Parkinson or not. This is not done with the allowance of pesticides. So the people saying all the allowed pesticides are safe, it's not true, it's not tested. The same thing is that it's clear that if you have two different pesticides, they are sometimes 10,000 times more toxic than you have one. They are all tested one by one. So in many crops, they use mixes of pesticides. So you know it's much more toxic than how they were allowed. So you could easily say that the existing norms of pesticides are probably not good enough. We are becoming ill of that. And we need to have pesticide-free agriculture. And I just got a beautiful paper from Nature, of one of the Nature, and in Switzerland and Germany, they're doing this already on a very large scale. So this of course we have the biological farms, and now we have the non-biological pesticide-free farms. And that's very hopeful for me, and that this becomes bigger. And working on a better soil, working on different ways to get rid of the weeds, working with flowers to get rid of the insects, so also the insecticides, and that is of course much more coherent. And some people say, yeah, but that's not high tech. Of course that's high tech. It's a different kind of high tech, incredibly complex to solve it without pesticides. You could even say pesticides is low tech, because that's the easy way, the makeable way. And then finally, of course, crazy chemicals all the time. Like now we have this PFAS. So when I was a student, we were all worried about the chlorinated compounds, and we did all kinds of things to get rid of chlorinated compounds. And then some crazy person thought, well, let's replace them by fluorinated compounds, which are proven now to be even more dangerous because you cannot remove them anymore. And of course, it's stupid we are in this situation, but we can only solve this now with innovation. Let that make clear. And I hope that my institute is going to play a big role in solving the PFAS crisis. And then if you look at the coherent way, we have now sewage treatment plants. Almost everywhere in Europe, every decent city has a sewage treatment plant. These are just natural bacteria from the ditch. They are now accelerated by additional oxygen. Pure natural technology. And you could easily say that everything that cannot be removed by this pure natural technology should not be allowed anymore as a chemical in society, including a lot of medicines, because they are also now a big problem. So now we are forced by Europe, not of course a ridiculous remark, we are forced by ourselves, and we have agreed it in Europe, that we have to remove the pesticides. And Europe has decided that the pharmacy companies have to pay for that, something like 80%. But that means that every beautiful natural technology sewage treatment plant is now going to get a chemical factory behind it that costs as much energy as the whole sewage plant together. So this is very shameful. So, looking at this health. So the beautiful dream of everyone is to stay healthy and die fast. Right? And what everybody don't want is to be on a tube for 10 years. And so it sounds maybe a little bit strange, but this is what you should wish for. And of course you must know for yourself when it is. Some people wish to be 100, some people wish to be 80. So you have to decide also with this, what is enough? When did I live enough? The coherent way is what we are doing on a very large scale now. About 50%, like I said, more than 50% of the Dutch people are chronically ill for a very large part of their lives. So the life expectancy is increasing, not so much anymore now since Corona, but it used to be increasing. But the life expectancy of healthy years is already reducing for the last 20 years. So we have less and less healthy years. So about 50% of the Dutch is halfway his life his or her life, becomes chronically ill. And then in the end, with incredibly expensive treatments, we try to make it even a little bit longer. So this is not coherent. So, and I also understand, I believe that many people are addicted. You are addicted to smoking, to alcohol, to eating sugar, to whatever. And if you ask addicted people, what do you want? Then of course they want to stay addicted. So this is also difficult to get out of this situation. The second effect of all these medicines, and that's also the reason that we want to remove them, is that they are really affecting biodiversity. In the first place, you have these fish, and these fish, they become male and female at the same time, so they cannot have babies anymore, and they disappear from the ecosystem. But all the psychedelic medicines, you have little animals in the water that become stressed, and therefore are eaten by others, and other ones becomes too lazy, too relaxed, and therefore are eaten by others. So it is affecting everything. So we really should do something about this enormous medicine system we have. So the second thing, of course, is it fair? And at this moment, I could say, although against a lot of resistance, we have started in the Netherlands with CO2 storage. And you could say, is it fair that we spend billions to put this incredible tiny little bit of CO2 under the ground, while we could also plant trees in deteriorated areas, and in this way store CO2, restore the water cycle, and even bring some well-being in these areas, which are incredibly hot at this moment and will be immediately cooled if you have trees. They calculate for the billion, for the amount of euros per kilo of CO2, you could do enormous amounts of tree planting. But since it's not in your own country and big companies cannot make money of it, it's not done. So this is very sad. We are at this moment even working at regenerating, this is one of the WETSES projects, regenerating watersheds that are completely dried out, like the Sinai. And if we would succeed in this, not only would we bound CO2, but we would directly cool the earth, because it has been calculated now that if you plant trees in hot areas, so this gray band, then you would directly cool the earth. And this is an enormous effect of cooling. And therefore, if you calculate for the amount of CO2, if you want to bind all the CO2, you need 1,000 billion trees. But if you would do that, we would have ice time. So we need much less trees to solve the temperature rise, restore the water cycles. And this is, at this moment, still the most disturbing effects of the climate change. And of course, at this moment, the whole innovation system is based on profit expectations. The university system and the companies, they only innovate if they think they can make a profit. It's not based on realizing our dreams. And therefore, I think this innovation system must change. That the industry and the university must get an assignment from society that the rivers must become drinkable again. And then we have to make them drinkable and innovate for that. So I think the world has to choose between a non-coherent or a coherent future. And it is clear at this moment we are very much on the non-coherent future. And of course you all are on the coherent one. And I also want to use this theory of Plato to describe reality. And the reality at this moment is what we call in the it system. It's only science and systems everything you can describe as it are used for convincing where the world has to go to. But if we continue in this it system, first let me explain the other one. There we add also a we system. So I always say in the it system, if you choose for a capitalistic system or a communistic system, it makes no difference if there is no integrity, if you don't get rid of corruption. So the we system, where we define together what is just and what is right, there we have, if you don't have these kind of values, then no it system will ever work. And the I system is our consciousness, who we are as a person, because I would say, I will come back to that later, that is one of the most hopeful futures, that we will become better persons. So let's first look at a non-coherent world. Where would we go to? The systems science world. We think the world is makeable, controllable. We can control our fate by all kinds of actions. We create, of course, inequality, because not everybody can pay this controllable world. And slowly but certainly we consider humans as an algorithm. And we are going to make humans more machines, like the Neuralink approach, by putting a thing in your head that you become smarter. But it's already happening with the smartphones, with smart GTP, that all kind of things are dehumanizing you. If you don't use it, you lose it. And if you look at the other one, the we world, there we have to decide with who do we want to share. Do we only want to share with our own family, with our own tribe, with our own village, or with our own belief? Do we want to share with strangers? Do we want to share with people on the other side of the world? Do we want to share with foreign future generations? Do we want to be fair and sustainable? Do we want to have high integrity standards? And the I is, of course, what's our purpose in life? How do we want to connect to other people? And what about our consciousness growth? So, if you look at consciousness, this is the theory of Ken Wilber, which I like very much, which makes me very optimistic. Then you could say the modern man exists about 50,000 years, and I didn't take the entire graph, I only take this part. And in these 50,000 years, the average consciousness that a human being reaches during his life is increased. And therefore we have become better people. Some people debate that, but that's what I believe. And the morality and the ecocentricity have become better. And I think that this consciousness is the best way to explain the culture war we are in this moment. Because as long as this culture war is going on, we cannot do great things. We cannot solve the environmental problem. We cannot introduce the economy of the common good. So we have to grow in consciousness. We have to change ourselves. So at this moment, the culture war is between the traditional people, the modern people, and the postmodern people. And the traditional people. Many times people with beliefs in a higher force. That was, you could say, the biggest consciousness in the agricultural revolution, and in this consciousness has difficulty to project a future, and. So the time is circular. You can imagine when you're a farmer, you have a seeding season, you have a harvesting season, you have the storage season. So that, and then every year it's the same again. And they have very strong convictions. They are very difficult to convince of anything else. So that's also what you sometimes hear in my group in science, that people want to convince other people of the truth of science, but that of course is useless if you have these strong convictions. Then the modern people, this is the majority in our modern times. This fits very well with our capitalistic system. And here you have a future perspective. Here you can project a world or a company that makes more money, or a world that is becoming better. What can also do, of course, project a world that becomes worse. And it is characterized with the urge to achieve. So if you feel the strong urge to achieve, then you are in this modernity. And then finally the postmodernity, and they detest anything with hierarchy and orders, so they cannot accept anything higher. But if you look at this graph, you could say that the modernity started somewhere in 1850. And then we got rid of slavery. We got human rights. So the morality increased. It was more than our... when we were traditional, only our own people were people. The rest were no people. So slavery was no problem. But when we became modern, everybody was people and everybody got the same rights. So no... But of course, not everybody got the same chances. This modern world is a world of winners and losers. And then the postmodern world started in the civil rights movements in the 70s, last century, and there it became much more important that we all have the same chances. It's a higher morality, and it's also important. Yeah, but these three consciousness are fighting each other. And the United States, you can see where this will lead to. And you will slowly but certainly see it in Europe too. It's becoming stronger and stronger. And we have to break this. And they found there is a new consciousness. About 5% of the people are now integral, and integral stands for wholeness, and it is very nice because coherent also stands for wholeness. So maybe we need to be first reach this integral consciousness. So the integral people are that's why they see this accolade. This is the only consciousness that will not fight the other ones. Therefore, it's very hopeful. And as the modern people think with their head, and the postmodern people think with their belly, the integral people think with the heart. So they are synthesizing that. And they understand that what is fair for you should be fair for everyone. If you want to eat meat every day, then you should also want everybody to eat meat every day, which will immediately destroy the world, of course. And they have world perspective. They realize that if we, like in the Netherlands and in Europe, we bring the biomass from all over the world to Europe, that you get all kinds of shortages in nutrients in other sides of the world, and we have way too much nutrients for a healthy environment. So the hopeful thing now is that the Enlightenment started when 10% of the people reached modern consciousness, and that the civil rights started when 10% of the people reached postmodern consciousness. And so I hope the economy of the common good with a coherent world will start with 10% of the people become integral. And they estimate that at this moment about 5% of the people is integral. So that's why I said 2030, because Ken Wilber says when you know this system, it immediately has a lifting effect of your consciousness. So if you spread this story, we can make it happen before 2030. And then my last topic, this brings me to a very famous theory in environmental sciences about your role as a leader. And in environmental sciences, we divide the world in three categories. You have the good leaders, you have the influential people, and you have the bad people. And Rutger just doesn't talk about the bad people. That is not smart, because they can have a very big influence in the world. So the good leaders, they are always good. I call them suns. They radiate from themselves. The influential people will only radiate when there is a good leader in their neighborhood. So they are the moons. They can only give light when there is other light. The black holes, of course, make everything dark. If you have a society where the bad people take over, then the influential people become grayish, and the whole society can become criminal. Huh? We have seen that in the Second World War. Maybe we see it in Germany, in Russia at this moment. So my theory is that the sons don't realize they are sons, because sons are good from themselves and they think everybody is good from themselves. But that is not true. So the responsibility of the sons is underestimated many times by the sons themselves. And when we have had a very bad time, like in the Second World War, then all the sons wake up. And after the Second World War, you could say we have had a flourishing time of integrity, that all the sons were awake. And I just also learned that was the time of the corporations. And then in the 80s, the things changed. A new generation started. And then all of a sudden we find that bank directors are taking gambles for their own profit on cost of the entire society, and all the associative companies were forbidden. So we are now more in dark times. So the question is, when is the time bad enough for the sons to realize their responsibility, not only to enlighten the moons, so people are not bad if there are sons among them, and also to keep control of the bad people, because if you don't do that, the bad people always know they are bad, so they don't have to be waken up, they are already awake. So every generation again, we have to find a way to wake up the sons, or else we always will have this wave. So one of my famous remarks is eat meat like a lion. A lion catches a prey, eats 4 days of meat, and then 6 days he is not eating anything anymore. A lion has a digestion system 100% built for meat eating, and he still needs 6 days of fasting to get rid of all the bad amino acids. It is incredibly stupid that people think they can eat meat every day. They have a worse digestion system for meat as lions, and they should eat meat in the same way. So don't eat a little bit of meat every day. Just don't eat meat for a longer period of time, every week or every time. And not only is it not healthier, so that will lead to less medicines, and at the same time you will save the world for the water problem. Second thing is, determine what is enough. I'm very glad there are a lot of students here. Now, when you're young, determine what is enough. If you make a career, then you know at a certain moment you have more than enough, then you don't need it anymore. And this is, of course, especially true for the people that earn more than average. The poor people, they have difficulty to have enough, but it's the richer people that should have enough, because it is the richer people that destroy the world. And finally, have a purpose, because living without a purpose is one of the biggest dangers of humanity. So, I asked my wife to make a painting of a sun, a radiating sun. So she made many paintings, and I chose this one. And with this painting, I want to close with my wishes: be integral, be radiating. Thank you much. Thank you very much.